Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is my pleasure to welcome you to Temple Emeth and to our Shabbat Evening Service. And I welcome you with the words Bruchim Habaim. If you are joining us on live stream, then I have a few notes to help orient you to our service and to help you fully participate. First of all, the Siddur that we use is Mishkan Tefillah. If you have a copy of Mishkan Tefillah at home, now is the perfect time to bring it to your screen or your laptop so that you can use the Siddur and follow along with our service. If you don't have a copy of Mishkan Tefillah, then you can still access one, preferably on a second device, by going to our live stream page at emeth.org/livestream, and then scrolling to the part of the page that says to access the Siddur prayer book. Once you've done that, you can click on Mishkan Tefillah for Shabbat, weekdays, and festivals, and that will open up our Siddur in flipbook format, in a digital format, so that you can follow along and you can see every song, every page number, and every prayer as we go along. Also, if you're joining us on live stream, I hope you'll take a moment to post in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. It can be something as simple as your name or your location. You can wish Shabbat Shalom or another Shabbat greeting. Your fellow online worshipers will see that, and you will form bonds of virtual community by doing just that. I'd like to welcome our congregation here to the Rabbi Louis J. Siegel Sanctuary. You are able to find a copy of Mishkan Tefillah right in front of your seat, and I hope that you will do that at this time so you can follow along with our service. And our service will begin this evening with, see, we had a morning service today, but it's evening now. So our service will begin this evening with the lighting of our Shabbat candles, which is found in Mishkan Tefillah on page 120, and is preceded by an opening reading. For the honor of lighting our Shabbat candles, we turn to Julie Weissman.
These lights are only flickering flames, yet flames illumine our uncertain steps. Flames purify and renew, soften and refine. They brighten and make warm. Flames remind us of Sabbaths long past and of their beauty that delighted our hearts. May they inspire us to work for the great Sabbath of peace. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue now with our Shabbat Evening Kiddush, which is found in the Siddur on page 123. It is preceded by an opening reading. And to have the honor of Kiddush, we call upon Stephen Friedman. Please rise if you are able for the Kiddush.
As evening falls, we give thanks for the blessings of the past week, for life and strength, for work and rest, for home, love, and community. As we enjoy this bounty, may we be inspired to bring goodness into the lives of others. We raise a cup of wine in gratitude for the miracle of creation and for the gift of this day of rest. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu V'Shabbat kodsho, ve'ahava uvratzon hinkilanu, zikaron le'maseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila le'mikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, inkaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Oops.
Please be seated. Our opening song is found in Mishkan Tefillah on page 142. I invite you to turn at this time to page 142 as Cantor Tillman leads us in singing Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malchei Asharet, Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bachem L'Shalom Malchei HaShalom Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barichuni L'Shalom Malchei HaShalom Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzitchem L'Shalom Malchei Shalom Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We turn now in the Siddur to page 126. Today, April 22nd, is Earth Day. It is not a Jewish holiday per se, but it is certainly a holiday rooted and extending to Jewish values. And so throughout the service, I'm going to be mentioning aspects of our environment, specifically water, and how our prayers evoke ideas of water, the precious nature of water, the scarce nature of water, and the holy nature of water. And then my remarks later in my sermon will have to do with that theme also, but expanding on it a bit more. Our first reading of this service is on page 126, and it doesn't relate specifically to water, but it relates to many of the things for which we as a Jewish community are grateful, including for all that is holy in my life. Well, on this Earth Day, I consider the ability to turn on my tap and to have clean water one of the holy things in my life for which I am grateful, something which we cannot take for granted, something which we know many millions and millions of people around the earth do not have access to on a regular basis. And so I invite you to read with me on page 126. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better, To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. We continue now on page 144 with the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'amad yivrav chirutei v'yamlik bachutei b'chayechon u'yomechon u'v'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael b'gala u'v'zman karev v'yimiru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Olam Me'omayah Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpar V'yitwamam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei D'Kedusha V'richu Leila Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tishbechata v'nechemata Ta'aniran yomam V'yimeru.
Amen. We turn now to page 146. Please rise if you are able for the Baruch Hu. We turn to page 148 where we find Ma'ariv Aravim. It is a prayer that connects us with God's power and the miracle of creation. It speaks mainly in cycles, the cycles of light and dark, the cycles of how the stars can help set the order of the universe. But as we think of creation and cycles, we are reminded also of the cycles of water. The beginning of Passover marked the end of the rainy season in Israel. We understand that the tides are part of the cycle. The rains are part of the cycle. And as we thank God for the miracles of creation, we include the miracle of water, which is mentioned several times in the story of Bereshit in Genesis chapter 1. I invite you to read with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhma poteach sha'arim uvitvuna mishanei itim umachalif et hazmanim umisader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtsono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir yom umevi layla Umavdil ben yom uvein laila Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam Tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. As we turn to page 150, we read together Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We turn now to page 157. Of all the sections of our Siddur, the one that relates the most closely actually to water is this one, because in a moment we're going to sing Mi Chamocha, the song that our ancestors sang as they crossed through the Red Sea. In that case, the water of the Red Sea was not water of refreshment necessarily. It was first a water of a border. They were stuck at the shore of the sea until it parted. And then suddenly, with that miracle, the water of the Red Sea became a passageway to freedom. And so here the water has not the physical importance of refreshing our bodies. Rather, it has the symbolic importance of representing the miracle and the gateway to freedom. We read together on page 157, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehiloto seifele, nora tehiloto seifele. Malchutecha ra'u fanecha, okei hayom lifnei Moshe, zeili anu ve'ara, zeili anu ve'amera. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'amar ki v'Adonai et Yaakov v'glam chazak mimenu. Baruch ata Adonai gal Yisrael.
I invite you to turn to page 161 and read with me at the top of the page in English. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam b'rit olam, b'ni u'vein b'nei Yisrael,
In a moment, we will recite the Avot V'Imahot, the prayer that asks for God's blessing because of the merit of our ancestors. One of those ancestors, though not mentioned by name, is Miriam. The legends around Miriam are numerous, including her remarkable relationship with water. She was said to have her own spring, which not only provided refreshment to all Israelites, but because it miraculously flowed in both directions as it circled the camp, offered easy transportation as well. When we pray in the merit of our ancestors on this Shabbat, let us also bear in mind the merit of Miriam, whose instinct as a prophetess inspired the people to praise God and whose power around water gave life in countless ways. We turn now to page 164. Please rise if you are able for the tefillah.
Adonai sifatai tiftahu v'yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanokra, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Akol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer, Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atarav Le'oshia, Mohorid atah. Mechakel Chaim b'Chesed, Mechayei HaKol b'Rachamim Rabim, Samech Noflim v'Rofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umikayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. We turn now to page 175. Please read with me in English in the middle of the page. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. We turn now to page 179. There we find a prayer for peace, and I think it's important to acknowledge the role of the scarcity of water in so many of the world's conflicts. It begins actually in the book of Genesis. Isaac in the land of Gerar wants to set up an encampment on his own where he can be somewhat independent, and the shepherds of the area keep pushing him farther and farther away because he's too close to what they claim are their wells. And so they keep digging wells, and as they dig them, they still have conflict over them. One of these wells is actually named Sitnah, which is loosely translated as conflict, until finally Isaac ends up digging 7 wells, the 7th of which is called Beersheba, and there's probably 2 ways to translate Beersheba. One is simply the 7th well, and the other is the well of the oath, because it takes an oath. It basically takes a peace agreement between Isaac and his neighbors to finally say that we've dug enough wells, we finally have access to the water that we need, and so based on this oath that we've exchanged with one another, I'm going to set up my encampment here. Of course, many conflicts over water do not end in this way, especially in the Middle East, where water is so scarce, but you could probably point to every continent and many countries where water is the source of conflict, and as water becomes more scarce, the conflicts over water will only increase. And therefore, as we bear in mind the importance of water in the role of peacemaking, we join together at the top of the page on 179. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael. Shalom. We take a moment now for Tfilat Halev, the opportunity to offer to God the prayer of our hearts. Inspirational readings are found at this time on page 180 and 181.
ata Adonai oseh hashalom.
Our service continues with our Torah service, Seder Kriyat Torah, which is found in Mishkan Tefillah beginning on page 363. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. We continue in the middle of the next page. Please rise.
Adonai Tzvaot Melech HaKavod Selah.
In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shema Gadol Adonai Iti Unironi Shema Yachdav Lecha Adonai Agedila Yagivera Yativeret Yanitzach Ve'ad Kichol Bashamayim Uvaretz Kichol Bashamayim Uvaretz Lecha Adonai Amamalach
Please be seated. It's a funny time on the Hebrew calendar because we Reformed Jews observe 7 days of Passover, and that means that Passover ended, I'm looking out the window, about 3 minutes ago. But our conservative and Orthodox neighbors have a day to go, and that means that for us, it's a regular Shabbat, and for them, it is a festival Shabbat, and therefore they have a special festival reading that we don't need to do. So where does that leave us? Kind of in a Torah portion limbo, as it were. So I'll tell you what, back when they used to make the women of Reformed Judaism calendar of blessed memory, this did happen from time to time, and what they did, and which I'm still following, even though that calendar is no longer published, is that basically they looked ahead to next week's Torah portion, which is Acharei Mot, and they stretched it out over 2 weeks. Not that if I had my choice, that would be the Torah portion that I spend 2 weeks on, but they didn't ask me. So I'm going to stick with that precedent of American Reformed Judaism, and I'm going to read from Parshat Acharei Mot, which is found in the book of Leviticus. And in Parshat Acharei Mot, we are introduced to Yom Kippur. Now, not literally, because there are festival calendars in other parts of the Torah that mention, something very brief, like on the 10th day of the 7th month, you shall have a day of fasting or a day of self-denial. However, it is here in Leviticus chapter 16, the beginning of Parshat Acharei Mot, where we have this detail of the Yom Kippur ritual as our ancestors observed it in ancient times. And it relied on the well-established ideals of ritual purity. It relied on a high priest who was born into this role and spent a significant amount of time and training preparing for this role. And it depended on the institution of animal sacrifice. So it had to do with a lot of things that we don't exactly connect with today. But on the other hand, the goal was the same then as it is every fall in our community on Yom Kippur, which is the coming together of the community to ask God for atonement of our sins. And in that way, the small piece that I'm about to chant for you is still timeless, because though the methods have changed, the goals have stayed the same as we observe Yom Kippur. And so that was a long way of saying that, that we're going to hear from Leviticus chapter 16, beginning with verse 1. And if you are sitting here in the sanctuary, you can find that portion beginning in the Plaut Torah commentary on page 863. Page 863. And if you are watching us on live stream and you have a copy of the revised Torah commentary at home, you can find the same section, Leviticus chapter 16, on page 770. Who's going to say the blessing? Are you both doing it? Okay, great. To honor the Torah, we call upon Paul Kaufman and Nancy Miller-Kozaradsky. Okay, give me just a sec to find my spot. 863. I found my spot. Okay, let me find my other spot. Wait one more sec. Okay, put your hand right there, Paul. And we are ready.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe acharei mot shnei bnei Aharon b'korvatam lifnei Adonai v'yamutu. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe daber el Aharon achicha v'al yavo b'chol eit el hakodesh mi beit laparochet el penei hakaporet asher al haaron v'lo yamut ki be'anan era'eh al hakaporet bizot yavo Aharon el hakodesh bifar ben bakar lechatat ve'ayel le'olah uktonet bad kadesh yilbash u'michnasei bad yihiu al bisaro ve'avnet bad yachgor u'mitznefed bad yitznof bigdei kodesh hem v'rachatz b'mayim et bisaro u'levasham u'me'et adat b'nei Yisrael yikach shnei se'irei izim lechatat ve'ayil echad le'olam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'chokenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. This time our thoughts turn to those in need of healing as we prepare to offer a Mishaberach, a prayer for healing, which is found in the Siddur on page 371. If you are thinking of someone in need of healing and you are joining us on live stream, I invite you to share their name in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. And if you're here in the sanctuary, I invite you to share the name of your loved one in need of healing out loud or in your heart. In a moment, we will see the names of our temple members and their loved ones in need of healing shown on your screen. To those names, we add Chaika Bat Abla and Chavala Hopefisher. We turn now to page 371, and we join together in singing the Mishaberach. We continue now with the lifting and dressing of the Torah, which is found at the bottom of page 370. Please rise if you are able for Hagba and Galila.
Yai lai 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 lai, ya la lai 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 lai, ya la lai 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 lai, lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai yai lai, yai lai la lai lam.
Please be seated. The Haftarah for Parshat Acharei Mot is found beginning on page 997. The section about Yom Kippur in the Torah portion presupposes that the Israelites have something to atone for, but the prophet Ezekiel here wants to make sure that they know exactly what those things are. And so he goes on at length with some of the things that he is upset about, that God is upset about, and for which the Israelites need to atone. I think they're self-explanatory, so you'll hear them as they are read. So I invite you to turn now in the Torah commentary books to page 997 if you're here in the sanctuary, or if you're watching us on live stream and you have a revised Torah commentary at home, you can follow the Haftarah on page 795. We call again upon Paul Kaufman to read the Haftarah.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen faithful prophets to speak words of truth. Praise to you, Adonai, for the revelation of Torah, for your servant Moses, for your people Israel, and for prophets of truth and righteousness. The word of the Lord came to me. Further, O mortal, arraign the city of bloodshed. Declare to her all her abortions, all her abhorrent deeds. Say, thus said the Lord God, O city in whose midst blood is shed, so that your hour is approaching, within which fetishes are made, so that you have become unclean. You stand guilty of the blood you have shed, defiled by the fetishes you have made. You have brought on your day, you have reached your year. Therefore I will make you the mockery of the nations, and the scorn of all the lands. Both the near and the far shall scorn you, O besmirched of name, O laden with iniquity. Every one of the princes of Israel in your midst used his strength for the shedding of blood. Fathers and mothers have been humiliated within you. Strangers have been cheated in your midst. Orphans and widows have been wronged within you. You have despised my holy things and profaned my Sabbaths. Base men in your midst were intent on shedding blood. In you they have eaten upon the mountains, and they have practiced depravity in your midst. In you they have uncovered their fathers' nakedness. In you they have ravished women during their impurity. They have committed abhorrent acts with other men's wives. In their depravity they have defiled their own daughters-in-law. In you they have ravished their own sisters, daughters of their fathers. They have taken bribes within you to shed blood. You have taken advance and accrued interest. You have defrauded your countrymen to your profit. You have forgotten me, declares the Lord God. Lo, I will strike my hands over the ill-gotten gains that you have amassed, and over the bloodshed that has been committed in your midst. Will your courage endure? Will your hands remain firm in the days when I deal with you? I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will act. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, rock of all creation, righteous one of all generations, the faithful God whose word is deed, whose every command is just and true, for the Torah, for the privilege of worship, for the prophets, and for this Shabbat that you, Adonai, our God, have given us, for holiness and rest, for honor and glory. We thank and bless you. May your name be blessed forever by every living being. Praise to you, Adonai, for the Sabbath and its holiness.
So I asked Paul to stop at the spot he stopped at because I want to leave a little suspense for tomorrow. We read the Haftarah on Saturday mornings too, so come back and you'll hear the last 5 verses. No, don't read them now. Wait until tomorrow. But anyway, it's a call to action and a call to conscience. We continue now as we prepare to return the Torah to the Ark. We turn to page 374. Please rise. Hallelujah et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado.
Adoret v'shamayim v'yaren keren le'amo tehillah lechol chasidav livnei Yisrael am kiravo. Lamachazim
seated. This morning at our festival service, we heard the words of Shirat Hayam, the song of the sea in Exodus chapter 15. In this text, the water begins as the barrier between slavery and freedom. When the waters part, the barrier is pierced, and the Israelites are able to arrive at the place where the next chapter of their journey will begin. Then the waters go back into place, drowning Pharaoh's army. The Midrash says that the Israelite children were frightened as the people moved through the walls of water. It's understandable. In addition to the sound of the water, they would have heard the groans of the freed slaves moving along, the bleats of the animals, the footsteps of Pharaoh's horses, and the shouts of his soldiers. So the parents of these frightened children reached their arms into a wall of water and were able to retrieve whatever item would comfort the young one. They could hold it or eat it, and then focus on the journey ahead. It was a miracle within a miracle. When we read these stories overlaid one on the other, we see that water has the power to bring life and cause destruction. Water forms borders which, depending on the situation, keep people in or keep people out. Feminist commentators have written that the parted waters of the sea represent a birth canal, and that the Israelites, when they have reached the other side, are reborn into a new nation with a new relationship with God. Shirat Hayam evokes the most powerful symbolism of water in the Torah. This evening's Torah portion shows another aspect of water. It may seem more mundane, but it is crucial to our full understanding of water in the tradition. By this point in the book of Leviticus, we have a pretty full picture of how important ritual purity was to the ancient Israelites, and that the Levitical priests were essential to making sure that the assessment of impurity and the reinstatement of purity were possible. In earlier Torah portions, we read about the laws of impurity from being near a dead body or giving birth to a child or having a discharge. This week's Torah portion represents the same concept in a more universal setting: atonement from sin. The high priest has responsibility for officiating at the Yom Kippur ritual. To prepare himself for this responsibility, he must bathe his body in water. It is a way of acknowledging the holiness of the garments he is about to wear, and moreover, the intense responsibility of helping Israel cleanse themselves of sin. According to the Mishnah, each time the high priest changed from the golden to the linen vestments, or the reverse, he had to take a ritual bath. Before and after doing so, he had to wash his hands and feet from the laver. This process occurred 5 times during the Yom Kippur observance. In this Torah portion, water has the spiritual power to cleanse and purify. While its implications may be broad, its applications are individual. One important aspect of the ritual is implied, but never stated. In order for the priest to do his job, he must have access to water. In order for Israel to annually renew its relationship with God on the 10th day of the 7th month, they must spend the rest of the year ensuring that they have a supply of water, not just for drinking, but for spiritual purposes as well. These, of course, are just 2 of the dozens of references to water in the Torah. Water is one of the miracles of creation. It is a source of dispute as feuding shepherds vie for access to it. The waters of the Nile are a victim of the first of the plagues against Egypt. Water is even the proximate cause of Moses not reaching the promised land. He struck the rock instead of speaking to it when the Israelites were thirsty. Today is Earth Day, which began in 1970 as a way to raise awareness about environmental challenges and to call upon policymakers to take measures to protect the earth. This was at a time before there was an Environmental Protection Agency and before there was a Clean Water Act. The global population in 1970 was around 3.7 billion people. Today, it is more than double that, just under 8 billion. That's 8 billion people who need water daily to drink, bathe, and clean their surroundings. And while the global population is constantly increasing, our ability to collect, pump, and treat water is far more limited. And so it is fitting that we as a Jewish community take some time on Earth Day to apply our Jewish values to the subject of water. We must remind ourselves that water is life, both literally and spiritually. And therefore, conserving water is an important Jewish value, of which one important component is personal responsibility. Well, it seems like acting alone doesn't make a difference. One of the enduring lessons of Earth Day is that a movement can begin with very few people, but still have a significant impact over time. There are a few concrete, individualized steps we can all take to reduce our water consumption, which require no investment. The first is our personal water use. We should be mindful of how much water gets wasted while we are standing at the bathroom sink. This happens most frequently when we leave the faucet on while we brush our teeth, shave, or lather our hands. It is almost always possible to shut the water off in the middle of these activities and then turn it on again to conclude. Similarly, we can take shorter showers, and with little effort, we can get just as clean using less water. In the kitchen, we can wait to run the dishwasher when it is full, and even better to run it at off-peak hours. Similarly, we can wait until we have enough laundry to fill the entire washing machine before doing a load. I suspect that in most households, this is not a problem. Outside our homes, we can skip watering our lawns and gardens on days it has rained. And when we do water, we should do it in the early morning or the late evening, when lower temperatures will reduce water lost to evaporation. Water conservation also involves understanding when water is used, even if we are not witness to that part of the process. Eating meat is a great example of this. It takes 1,800 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef. This includes not just the water the cow drinks, but the water required to grow the food it eats and to maintain its surroundings. When we eat less beef, we also consume significantly less water. Everything I mentioned so far is completely free. In fact, you can save money doing it. It requires only an awareness of how we use water and a commitment to conserve. When we are ready to make upgrades on our homes, we can invest even more in conserving water. We can do this by fixing leaky faucets, installing efficient shower heads and dual flush toilets, and purchasing high-efficiency appliances. But as much as we need to hold ourselves accountable, so too must we advocate for policies that hold our country accountable. Several major corporations now promote their water efficiency. We should encourage this and buy from them when possible. And we should resist attempts to roll back protections already in place. What some people call burdensome government restrictions are often laws that prohibit industries from polluting the water sources we all rely upon. I hope that on this Earth Day you will make the commitment to making one or more of these changes in your lifestyle. We understand that water was central to our ancestors' understanding of how they navigated the world. Our access to water is much more convenient, which can give us a sense of complacency. But we must be as vigilant as our ancestors in appreciating water and encouraging conservation. It is a limited resource, and when we run short, every aspect of our life will suffer. A well-known midrash on the creation story reads, "Take care not to spoil or destroy my world, for if you do, there will be no one to repair it after you." Caring for this enormous earth begins with small steps. As large regions of the world suffer drought and water tables decline, each one of us can and must be part of the solution so that the blessing of water is one that future generations may continue to enjoy. Happy Earth Day and Shabbat Shalom. Our service continues now with the Aleinu, which is found in your Siddur on page 586 at the bottom of the page. Please rise if you are able for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לדן הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עצרנו כגויי הרצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהן, וגר עלינו ככל אמנם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לבני מלך, מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, לשמו, לשמו, לשמו אחד.
We remain standing at this time as we turn in our Siddurim to page 597 for a reading to introduce the mourner's Kaddish. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. This Shabbat, we remember those for whom we are in the Shloshim 30-day period of mourning: Jan Camel, brother-in-law of Risa Rosenberg; Rabbi Atovia Ben Chorin, remembered by Emily and Elliot Steinberg; George Kirsch, brother of Dan Kirsch and brother-in-law of Laura Kirsch; and Frederick Marks, brother of Carlene Fleischman. We remember as well those whose yahrzeits occurred this week: Beatrice Abrams, Herbert Blitz, Gertrude Breitkopf, Peter Buckenholtz, Shmuel Burstein, Francis Friedland, Jacob Geller, William Grunstein, Samuel Hecht, Samuel Hirsch, Hazel Hodgson Houghton, Henrietta Joseph, Richard Koffler, Stephen Koslow, John Kozaradsky, Jenny Levy, Eric Loeb, Lisa McGuire, Alice Meyer, Germaine Meyer, Lena Myers-Klein, Ethel Miller, Muriel Pater, Theodore Piltz, Lillian Patel, Hilda Sachs, Leslie Rubel Shinrod, Morris Sidron, Saul Ullman, and Murray Wunderlich. And we remember the names of 6 of the 6 million who perished in the Holocaust: Moshe Israel of Romania, age 12, Madziunia Israelowicz of Poland, age 6, Yaakov Ingber of Poland, age 10, Gittel Ebeshish of Poland, age 8, Fima Schwartz of the Soviet Union, age 5, and Asna Edel of Poland, age 6. We remember them all. We take them into our hearts with our own as we turn now to page 598 and we join together in the life-affirming words of the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, be'chayechon uvyomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'yizman kariv imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivorach leolam u'olmei almaya, Yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemeid kudsha b'rechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say, amen. Please be seated. It is my pleasure at this time to call upon Gary Richards, a member of our Board of Trustees, to offer Shabbat greetings and announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As a member of the Board of Trustees, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Shabbat Evening Service. The event that you've all been waiting for occurs this weekend. It's our Temple Emeth's garage sale. It's this Sunday, April 24th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can shop for household items, gently worn clothing, books, collectibles, and more. And I'm sure we have plenty of volunteers for the tables, but if you want to help me count cash on Sunday, please come by. Join Rabbi Serbia on Tuesday, April 26th for our next adult education series, Israel's National Security and Civil Liberties, Balancing the State's Objectives. Rabbi Serbia will discuss the history of both Zionist philosophy and Israeli institutions. The class will be a hybrid, in person in the library and also on Zoom. It will be preceded by Stories from a Jewish Perspective at 7:30 p.m. Textbooks for this four-part series are available for sale in the Temple office for $20. The Jewish Community Council of Greater Teaneck, of which Temple Emeth is a member, will host its annual Yom HaShoah commemoration online on Wednesday, April 27th at 7:30 p.m. This year's speaker is Judy Battalion, the best-selling author of The Light of Days, The Untold Story of Women Resistance Fighters in Hitler's Ghettos. Temple Emeth members can look for a link in the weekly email. Now, the last thing I'm supposed to say today is thank you to this evening's volunteers in the live stream control room. Mark Chellemer and Gary Richards are in the controls. Well, thank you, Mark, but obviously I'm here. So I apologize to I apologize to to Meredith for giving her notice late last night that I wasn't going to do it, and a special shout out to Pauline Hecht, who replaced me at the last moment. And Pauline gets first dibs at the ONEG tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick additions. So first of all, Gary mentioned my class on Israeli security and civil liberties and the book. I think it's going to be helpful to anyone interested in taking the class to review the book in advance. So if anyone here wants a copy of the book, I'm happy to give it to you, and then we can catch up with you after Shabbat for the $20. But I want a lot of people to come and enjoy it, and so please feel free to ask for a book if you'd like one. Next is that I want to thank Paul Kaufman, who is the voice of the environment here at Temple Emeth, because he emailed me, I don't know, about 8 weeks ago, telling me, like before Purim that Earth Day was coming. And I'll tell you, no rabbi before Purim is thinking about Earth Day, but Paul put it on my radar screen. And so all of the comments that I offered today about water were because Paul asked me to do it. Not that I take requests for all sermons, but if you have a request, I guess I'm kind of curious what it might be. So thank you to Paul. And finally, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in our service, our Temple Emeth Reform observance of Passover officially ended at sunset, and the sun has definitely set. And so we have a regular chametz oneg waiting for you after. I mean, a lot of people, when it doesn't fall out on these days of the week, you go out for pizza or pasta or something. But how nice that you can have your first chametz of the week be right here at the oneg of Temple Emeth. And if you observe 8 days, I think we have a macaroon in the back for you. Okay. But our service is not over, because Cantor Tillum and Tom Estachio have prepared a wonderful closing song, and the cantor is going to tell you all about it.
So I thought it would be a fitting end to our celebration of Pesach to sing something from the Haggadah. So most of us at our Seders sing the words V'hi she'amda lavotenu v'lanu, but this melody is a favorite of mine. I would call it one of the most popular and beautiful melodies written in modern Jewish music. I say modern because I don't think that the piece is more than 10 years old, if that. It was popularized by really a giant of modern Jewish religious music, Yaakov Shweki, He has a phenomenal voice, and he has some beautiful melodies. And I have loved this melody for a long time, just never had the opportunity to sing it. So I literally threw it at Tom, meaning I texted him a YouTube, and I said, can we do this Friday night? And he said, sure. And he, in his usual overwhelmingly talented way, took the piece right off YouTube and by ear made an entire arrangement of it. So thank you so much, as always, to Tom Mustachio. V'hi she'amda lavotenu v'lanu, and this is God's blessings and the Torah. That's what we're talking about here. And when we say this thing that we're talking about, this is what has kept our ancestors and what keeps us surviving. For not only one arose and tried to destroy us, rather in every generation there have been those who have tried to destroy us, and it is God who saves us repeatedly from their hands. V'hi she'amda.
she'amda lavoteinu v'hi she'amda lavoteinu v'lanu shelo echad bilvad amad aleinu lechalotenu amad aleinu lechalotenu v'hi she'amda lavoteinu v'hi she'amda lavoteinu v'lanu shelo echad bilvad amad aleinu lechalotena amad aleinu lechalotenu v'akadosh baruch matzilena matzilena mi'adam v'akadosh baruch matzilena matzilena mi'adam shelo echad bilvad amad aleina lechalotena lechalotena hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu mi'adam ve'hakadosh baruch hu matzilena matzilena mi'adam ve'hakadosh baruch hu matzilena matzilenu mi'adam ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 lam da 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 dam ya la la la.
We have reached the end of our service. That means if you have been watching us on live stream, it is your last opportunity to post a greeting in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. And if you're here in the sanctuary, it means that it is your opportunity to now turn to someone else here in the sanctuary as we conclude our service with the words, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.